I am joined in conversation today on this beautiful day in Dayton and a beautiful day, it looks like, in Bloomington, Indiana. And it looks from the window behind you, Malcolm, a beautiful day in London.
Yes,
Discuss
unusually so.
to discuss our imminent reunion in person coming up in Dayton at the beginning of November. My guests are British composer and conductor and all-around musician Malcolm Singer, who I met 49 years ago, if my math is correct, and pianist and composer and teacher and musician extraordinaire Emile Naoumoff, who I met 50 years ago. And I'm pretty sure my math is correct there. And Emile and Malcolm have known each other, I think, for the same 49 years that Malcolm and I have known each other. And we're going to be together in the same city, in the same space, in three dimensions very soon. And we're getting together to talk about a little bit about the past and a little bit about the present and a little bit about the future. So welcome, Malcolm from London and Emile from Bloomington.
Thank you for inviting us to this and in November.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today and looking forward to my trip to Dayton.
So Malcolm, we're playing your London landscapes, a 6 or 7 minute piece, which I think is quite wonderful. So tell us a little bit about the piece, but I'm also interested in your composition in general or specifically. How much of what you do is something that you sit down and plan out before you do it? And is there but on the other hand, is there an improvisatory point in your composition process when you just sort of start seeing what comes out of your ear?
When I'm composing, I want to write down what I want. So when I'm composing, I will go between my piano behind me and sketch in a way that no one could possibly read what I've written down in my sketches. And then I will put things onto the computer, not to hear, not to listen, just in a printing way. And then I'll print that out and I'll scribble on that and I will slowly develop the piece. But for me, the overall form and the shape in a finished composition as opposed to a improvisation is slightly different. And I'm interested in the in constructing the narrative in the piece. And if one in tonal music, the narrative is a journey away from the tonic and eventually back to the tonic. In classical music, and as we go through the 19th century, we go further and further away from the tonic and more chromatic. And then finally with, well, we get to the Tristan chord, and then we get to people like Scriabin, and then we get to Schoenberg and the 12-tone system. And I'm trying to write a music that is not tonal, but is not serial either, and to find a narrative with my musical material. Where do I want to take it? How do I find a point of climax and a point of return if I'm not working in a tonal way? So of course, you haven't only got pitch, you've got dynamics and texture and all sorts of other ways of controlling the way you communicate a narrative. I don't want to call it a story. Because it's a narrative without words, but a dramatic narrative within the work. So I like to have a finished piece that does not have improvisation in it, because unless I have a performer like Emile, I rarely trust performers to think like composers. A composer thinks about, I mean, the word composing is putting sound together. And I would like to think that over the years, I've learned a little bit about how to put sound together, hopefully in a satisfactory way.
I wanted to follow up and ask you, since you spoke about the narrative of a
Yeah.
piece of music. So London Landscapes is 6.5 minutes or so, beginning slowly and softly and ending slowly and softly and getting rather busy at various points in the middle. So how would you describe the narrative that you were trying to create in that piece?
Well, I don't write programmatic music as such,
Right.
but I think I was inspired by the London landscape and the opening with the very high music. There's a lot of very high music in the first minute or two. The bass instruments don't sound till quite a bit into the piece, and this kind of um, magical stillness one can get in an early morning, walking over the London bridges and looking at the London landscape. And then in the middle, you've got a lot of music with a lot of energy and jagged energy, I hope. It's not consonant, but I think it's very easy to listen to because there's a lot of clarity in the musical shapes and lines, but in a very jagged way. And well, I wanted to end the piece with a question mark. I don't like ending pieces with big grand statements, so it goes back to ending with a on it's unresolved, the final chord, I think, and it leaves a question mark. And maybe it's kind of circular. One can almost go back to the beginning of the piece as you get to the end of the
Yeah,
piece.
it does kind of return to the opening mood in a slightly different manner.
Yes, any work of art, when you perceive it, whether it's movies or theatre, or you should come out a different person when you've experienced it. Not It doesn't have to be radical and revolutionary, but something about it changes one's perspective. And so returning to not a recapitulation, but returning to similar music, having gone on a journey, one hears it in a different way.
And Emile, you're coming to Dayton to play the first piano concerto of Beethoven. The last time you were with us a bunch of years ago, you played the Grieg concerto, and there are several people I've spoken to, what's happening in November, and they say Emile Naoumoff is coming back to play with the orchestra. And I swear to you, people have said to me, he's the one who played that amazing Grieg concerto, isn't he? And I say, yes, indeed, because it was an amazing performance. And I'm so happy you're coming back to us. So my question for you about the Beethoven, going back to the question of improvisation, when it comes time for a cadenza, will you be playing a Beethoven cadenza or will you be playing a Naumov cadenza that you improvise for us?
I'm
No
writing.
pressure. I'm just curious. Have
I'm
you thought
writing. I'm writing a cadenza for you,
Oh,
So
and
that's in between the improvisation and
well,
so
because of Mademoiselle's desire to organize the thoughts for me, also because for me, every time I have been so lucky as to be invited by you to conduct me in Dayton, I have learned so much more than in 100 other concerts because your conductor's integrity is close to none others. And so when I was thinking I will like to bring something creative within the style of Beethoven, of course, in the cadenza, I wanted to structure it and organize it. So I have ideas and I would like to play it, but it's not necessarily frozen, but it has, the structure is there. I try not to be too smart-assing myself because I find it is so easy to start organizing the themes overlapping on each other because it's show off. And when you see the cadenzas written by Beethoven, even for Mozart concerto in D minor, which he played, he rarely did anything very, let's say, elaborate other than show off arpeggios and scales, which is what the purpose of the sort of vocalises of pianist is. And when I was young, I was playing this concerto under Menuhin in Paris in 73. And I remember playing a Casadessus cadenza since I was studying with Robert Casadessus at the time. And 3 weeks later, I played in the Berlin Philharmonic with Thomas Mayer, who used to be in early 70s a conductor in Cincinnati. And until that birthday of mine, which was to be 11th, I sadly believed in Santa. But between Yehudi and Thomas Mayer, the tempo was literally divided in two. So he already conducted the dum pum pum, dum pum 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 into two. And Thomas Meyer, da dum pum pum, 2, 3, da 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 dum. And I was 10:30. I was 10 and a half. I thought all the adults have agreed among themselves on a tempo in Beethoven. And I still believed in Santa, but then I believed in conductors too. And I remember telling Thomas Meyer 3 weeks ago, Mr. Menuhin conducted it faster and it's easier for me to play because I have no technique. I didn't say that, but I knew it. And so when you have little technique as a child, you fake playing passages with pedal fast. And because you have a child, people say, oh, she's charming. And I was indulging because I had to play this concerto not knowing that I'll be exposed to the basics of the technique of it to Thomas Meyer, who refused to even consider not doing it in 4/4 relatively calmly. And therefore, all my 16th notes bundles were so uneven. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a teacher next to me. I was in Berlin. My parents were in the hall. I thought, I'm just so deeply, first of all, surprised because I thought everybody conducts it like Yehudin too. And from there on, I learned that music means so different things to so different people. And the last movement being the upbeat accent, it was so much fun because Yehudi let me play very free. And in that solo opener of the third movement, whenever Thomas Meyer, I remember so clearly, he was conducting me how to play it before the tutti of the orchestra, just because he didn't trust that child that I was. And so, yeah. But you didn't conduct it yourself, but you played it perhaps on the piano?
I played the first Beethoven concerto I learned as a young pianist.
So you could do one of the rehearsals.
I will be very happy to sit and watch and observe you two masters at work. But it looks like it's going to be a wonderful concert. I'm looking forward to it very, very much.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too, and I just want to thank both of you for taking the time to reminisce and, as I said, talk about the past and talk about the present and talk about the future. And all be together very soon, making music together, and that's what's wonderful.